and Hebrew women could go in here. Hebrew men is the court of men on the outside of the Holy of Holies in the holy place. Hebrew men could go there, and this is the holy place in the Holy of Holies where only the priests or the high priest could go. And it's this outer portion of the temple that Jesus is driving out the money changers, driving out those who are selling the doves and the lambs, and he's saying this needs to be a place of prayer. A place of prayer. I already mentioned this, that in John, the disciples remembered from Psalm that Jesus' zeal would be for the house of the Lord. And I wonder, what is our zeal for? Are we excited to come to worship? Are we excited, or is it like, oh man, we stayed out too late last night. We really don't want to get up this morning. Oh man, it's a Sunday morning, it's snowing out. I think we should just stay home. Oh man, it's sunny out. I think I should go golfing. Or is there, yeah, we want to come to the house of the Lord in praise, in worship. There's something interesting with this, the fact that God's house, the temple, was called to be, in some respects, a fourfold place. A place of prayer, where people could come and to be in relationship with Yahweh God. A place of praise, worship and praise. A place of God's power. The Holy Spirit, God's power. And a place for God's people. Not just Hebrew people at that time, but all people. And think about it for here and now. Don't these four still remain? We're called to be a place of prayer, a place of praise, a place of God's power, a place of God's people. But there's something else going on here. And this is truly amazing to me. This is so cool. You got to follow me with this, okay? This is so cool. In the book of John, John uses, when Jesus is talking about, in the book of John, after Jesus runs everybody out of the temple, the religious leaders say, give us a sign. Whose authority? Why are you doing this? And Jesus says those great words, I will tear down this temple and rebuild it in 3 days. How do you remember that? That's from John, the first time that Jesus cleans the temple out. In Matthew 26, when Jesus is brought before the religious leaders, and we're going to see that on Thursday night, early Friday morning, when Jesus is brought before the religious leaders, they're trying to get some false testimony against him. They can't get any. Finally, they get a couple of guys who come in and say, we heard Jesus say, and he had said it 3 years earlier, I can tear down the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Matthew 26. That's one of the accusations, or not accusations. What are they called? Not verdicts. Charges. Thank you. That's one of the charges against Jesus, is that he said, I can tear down this temple and rebuild it. And they said, wait, it took Herod. It took us 46 years to build this, and it's not done yet. Jesus there is using the Greek word Naos, N-A-O-S. Can you jump back to the map? Naos, which is the name of the holy place and the Holy of Holies. Jesus says, I can tear down this temple and rebuild it. The holy place and the Holy of Holies. We know he was talking about his own body. That he died, he was buried, and he was resurrected 3 days later. We know that. It's interesting in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, when he cleans out the temple, the word they use for temple is the whole temple that he's cleaning out. Okay, go with me on this. Go with me. Again, some of you may think I'm being sacrilegious. This is, I believe, a place of God. Don't get me wrong. It's a place of God. But we can go to a movie theater and gather as Christians and have a worship service, and it's a place of God. We can go to a high school auditorium and gather as Christians, and it's a place of God. There's been a shift that's taken place. You see, in 70 A.D., the Roman Empire came in and destroyed Jerusalem, destroyed the temple. All that today remains of the temple is the Wailing Wall. The temple's gone. What does Jesus say? He says He's going to rebuild the Holy of Holies, the holy place. His temple, who He was. Then we gotta take this another step farther. The Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians says this: do you not know that your body is the temple? The word there used for temple is N-A-O-S. What Jesus uses as His temple. That your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God. You are not your own. You were bought with a price. Therefore, honor God with your body. Yes, this place is important for us to gather together. But really, what is the temple of God? Right here. My life. Your life is the temple of God. And then what does Jesus say about that? He says, where 2 or 3 are gathered, there I am with you. Ephesians 2 says, in Him, Jesus Christ, the whole building is joined together and rises up to become a holy naos. Holy of holy place, temple to the Lord. And in Him you are being built together. We are being built together as the temple of God. Sort of like that song that, I am the church, you are the church. Right? We are the church together. And some of you know that song? Nobody knows that song? Nobody knows that song? Okay, Paul. I am the church. You are the church. We are the church together. All God's people all around the world. Yes, we're the church together. No? Thank you, Paul. At least there's 2 of us. I think we could change that song to say, instead of I am the church, it should be I am the temple. I am the temple. You are the temple. We are the temple together. We come together. And we're the temple because we have the Holy Spirit within us. So like in Corinthians, the Apostle Paul is talking about this, and he's talking about, point blank, he's talking about, is it okay to go to a prostitute, to connect yourself to a prostitute? No, it's not. Why is it not? Because if you're the temple of God, you're putting yourself in somebody else who's not the temple of God. We're called to be married as a couple, and that becomes a holy sacrament there within marriage. We are the temple of God. So what does that say for us? My life needs to be a life of prayer. My life needs to be a life of praise. My life needs to be a life of power. God's power, not my power, but God's power. My life needs to be open to all of God's people. And my life needs to be cleaned out, like the temple was. How about your life? And when Jesus says, with a prayer for the fig trees, when you've offended somebody, or if somebody's offended you, you got to go to them. In the temple, there's the exploitation going on. There's the religiosity going on of, it's got to be like this way. It's a religion, not a relationship. We could add so much more today within our own lives of how we get sidetracked and how the temple of our own life becomes cluttered. And we start doing things for ourselves. So my simple question to you today is, what needs to be cleaned out? Lent is a time often of people giving things up. Many of you know that for years, 20 plus years, I've given up pop, Diet Coke, on Lent, during Lent. So this Wednesday, I'm going to be done with Diet Coke for 7 weeks, and I always feel a whole lot better when I do it. Physically, I feel better. Some people